I was born in Damascus in 1965. Grew up a Muslim, trying to understand how I can make it to heaven. And the Islam I grew up in explained it to me as such as you do as good as you can, and if the good outweighs the bad when you die, you go to heaven. I had to wrestle with this salvation issue. And my father explained to me that salvation is not guaranteed. You can earn it, but it's not guaranteed. I said, why is it guaranteed to my Christian friends? And he didn't have an answer. I got an opportunity to come to the United States, and Dad supported me. And when I first got to the United States, I met a lot of nice Christians, and they would explain to me things about Christianity that didn't really make a whole lot of sense at the time. And then they would ask me where I was from, and I would say Damascus. And they would say, oh, like the road to Damascus. And I would look at him and I would say, yes, we have roads in Damascus. No, it's in the Bible. In 1990, we moved to Birmingham, and I got a job as a photographer with the Birmingham Post-Herald. In 92, I was photographing a fire at the Presbyterian Church on Highland Avenue. And I felt a headache in my head that within seconds advanced to the feeling that my head was going to blow up, burst. And I had to shut my eyes because they felt like they were going to pop out. And I started screaming, and I fell on the ground, and there was a paramedic next to me. And the fact that the aneurysm happened next to a paramedic was pretty amazing. They work on me, and they take me to the hospital, and they do a CAT scan, and there was a bleed the size of an apple in the middle of my brain.
In the brain?
And they told my wife that chances of surviving a ruptured aneurysm in the lower middle brain is close to 2%. Little by little, the blood disappeared on its own. After 3 weeks, I woke up from a coma. And I have a choppy memory of about a month or so when I was awake. I survived what kills most people, and my neurologist at the time, Dr. Randolph George with Montclair, he held me by the shoulder with one hand and said, Kareem, you got to find out why you survived. I said, okay, I will. He holds me by both hands and he shakes me. And he said, Kareem, I've never seen this in my 40 years, coming back 100%, and you really need to do some exploration. I had this feeling that God saved me. I heard people tell me God saved me to tell about His love, the love that I wanted really bad when I was young. I survived the aneurysm and started talking to preachers and theologians, and one of them told me to read the Gospel of John. I read the Gospel of John, and I got to John 14:6. I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. And I stopped, because I wasn't going to come to the Father and leave my family behind, and leave all the good Muslim people behind. Continued talking on and off to preachers, and then in '96, a friend of mine said, you got to meet this preacher. I said, okay. We go to the Anchorage restaurant in Homewood. It's no longer there. And I'm sitting in the Anchorage, and Frank Barker walks in. And Frank sits down. He said, John 14:6 means exactly what it says, that you have to come to Christ to go to heaven. I said, what about my family? He said, your family's in the hands of God. What are you going to do? And I said, I'm going to walk out. And I got up and left. His words would haunt me for a decade. In 2008, I met a woman named Dana, who, after we liked each other, we started to date, and then after 2 weeks of meeting, she called me and said, "You say you're a Christian, but do you consider Jesus Christ your Lord and Savior?" I said, "I am a Christian, but I don't do those words." Next day, I started thinking of Frank Barker. Because over the past decade, those words, "your family is in the hands of God," just stayed with me. And the next week, I was shooting a dinner at the Alabama Policy Institute. And while we were having dinner, I said, "I would love to meet your pastor, Frank Barker, because I have something to tell him." She said, "Well, you can turn around and touch him. He's sitting right behind you." And I turned around and I see him and Barbara sitting at a table right next to us. And I kneel by his chair and I say, "Dr. Barker, do you remember me?" "No." 12 years ago, you told me that Jesus Christ was the only way to heaven. And? I said, "And now I believe that, and I'm good with it." When I was lost in between Islam and Christianity, I found verses like John 5:28. "Do not marvel at this, for a time is coming when all who are in their graves will hear his voice and come out. Those who have done good to the resurrection of life. Those who have done evil to the resurrection of judgment." In John 10:16, "I have other sheep that are not of this fold. I must bring them also. They will listen to my voice." And those verses to me meant that other people are going to be okay. And then after the discipleship with Dr. Barker, I realized that it's going to be my responsibility and everybody's responsibility who's a believer to make sure these people are okay. Salvation is of the Lord, but He works through us.